All right. Thanks everyone for joining us for our webinar on financial services marketing, where we'll walk you through 14 proven ways to drive revenue with PPC. My name is Caroline Cox. I'm the Content Marketing Manager here at HawkSEM, and I'll be hosting today's webinar. I'll introduce you to our amazing presenter, Steve, here in just a bit. But first, a few housekeeping notes before we get started. Today's webinar is using the Zoom platform, as you probably saw. You can join this audio via your computer, tablet, whatever works for you, or you can call directly from your phone if that's easier. Also, if you have any questions during the webinar, just type them into the Q&A box. That should be on the lower side of your Zoom panel. We'll have a Q&A section at the end where these will be addressed. This webinar is being recorded, so we'll share a link to the recording within the next few days as well. Okay, let's get started. So for today's agenda, we'll be doing a brief introduction into who we are, what we'll cover today, and then we'll dive right into those 14 great tips from Steve. Lastly, we'll have a brief Q&A where we'll answer as many of your submitted questions as time allows. So about HawkSEM. We are a full-service digital marketing agency. These are just some of the services we offer, everything from paid social to SEO, and of course, paid search / PPC. Yep, there you go. You can see that right there. And then real quick, there are a lot of agencies out there. What's different about us? First is our conversion IQ system, which you'll see more about on the next slide here. This is our smart way of marketing that ensures we're always focused on revenue, not just traffic. We're all marketing scientists, so we don't have a separate dedicated analytics team because everyone on our team, every account manager is a data-driven marketing scientist. We also only employ senior managers, which means we don't have any junior marketers working on our accounts. It's all senior talent. We're strategists who execute, so we don't just give you a to-do list. We actually come up with best practices and then make them happen for you. And then, of course, we focus on the human touch. We don't follow the set it and forget it model. We're always iterating and testing new things on campaigns. And lastly, we have extensive expertise in your area of lead gen. So specific to the FinServ industry and the finance industry, we work with companies like Bridgewell Capital, Wyndham Capital Mortgage, and NewFi, among others that are shown here. So now I'll introduce Steve Dang. He's the Director of Digital Marketing and Strategy here at HawkSEM. He's got more than a decade of experience leading digital teams and revenue growth. He's worked with clients across multiple verticals, including SaaS, FinTech, e-commerce, higher education, financial services, and more. And in his spare time, he enjoys traveling, long runs, long swims, and long books. And before I pass it over to Steve to kick things off, we just want to poll the audience and see what level of PPC expertise we're talking to today. So I'm going to launch a poll and it should pop up on your screen and it should say, what's your current level of experience with PPC? And you can, say whether you're a newbie, you have basic knowledge, advanced knowledge, or you consider yourself a pro. So I'm going to give everyone a few seconds here to respond, and then I'll share the results with everyone. These are anonymous, so don't worry about that, no matter what your skill level is. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end this now and share the results. So it looks like we've got a good mix of knowledge levels here, which is great. A lot of people have basic knowledge, but we also have some newbies and some pros. And so that's great. And with that, I will pass it over to you, Steve.
Thanks for that great introduction, Caroline. Really excited to jump in here to go over this awesome material with you guys here today. So just beginning with the title here, as you know, this is for 14 ways to drive maximum revenue with PPC for the FinServ space. Tip number 1, focus on engagement. It probably goes without saying that this is very important. So there are really 3 main points to the engagement piece that we want to talk about here. The first is just to make sure that your landing pages or whatever you're presenting as marketing material to your audiences is as user-friendly as possible. In the FinServ space, as you know, it can get pretty nitty-gritty. There are a lot of details, a lot of numbers. We just want to present it in as seamless and as easy to digest a way as possible. And one way of doing this is really making it visual so that all of your graphics, all of your information are both informative and visually appealing at the same time. So you really want to present it in a way that it kind of pops to the user, if you will. The second aspect of this is to leverage various elements such as video assets, infographics, and competitive matrices to really help illuminate some of that material that we were talking about before. One really good way of doing this, of course, is infographics, which is very popular in this space. The other way is competitive matrices. When you're comparing your information against competitors, this is very important. So because it allows users to have at a glance sort of high level view of how your product or service compares to others, and really helps to drive effortless kind of conversions if there are key differentiators from your business that really sets you apart. The last piece is just additional engagement hooks that you can leverage on your landing page. So as you can see from the screenshot here in the upper right-hand corner, we do leverage a live help or live chat feature. This has been shown to dramatically improve time on site, reduce the bounce rate, and also just improve engagement levels all around. And lastly, just make sure that there's good, seamless, clear flow to your website so that it makes logical sense. Make sure that the different sections flow from one section to the next so that users are always kind of aware of where they're at on the page and how they're navigating it. Tip 2 is to pay attention to the data. So there's a lot of data as you kind of launch your campaigns in this space that you're going to be collecting. Location data, data about income, where your users are coming from in terms of zip code and things like that. It's very important to optimize based off of what's actually driving business in your CRM. So I know the temptation with a lot of digital marketers is to look at the goals inside of analytics or at the conversions or leads inside of Google Ads because it's just right there. But what's more important is to take a step further and do the proper lead scoring and follow through to see which keywords, which segments are actually driving high quality leads that convert ultimately to fundings, deals, and business for you. And the way we do that here at HawkSEM is to do end-to-end attribution and through something we call conversion IQ, which pretty much links all of the elements together and brings everything full circle. So if you look at what actually drives fundings and deals, trace it back to the originating keyword. That's what we really focus on instead of just optimizing off of the leads and the goals inside of Google Ads or analytics. Lastly, have a 360-degree view of your marketing efforts. It goes without saying that digital marketing is omni-channel. So it's very important to look at how your paid search efforts interact with SEO, interacts with your direct channel, and your social media efforts as well. So we definitely encourage you to kind of zoom out and have that high level view of all the interactions and second order effects, which will become obvious with you as you kind of pour through the data, both in your CRM and in an analytics tool like Google Analytics. So at this point, we wanted to share a quick stat from with you. This comes from Adobe. It was published in 2017, but 71% of financial services organizations plan to increase their digital marketing spend in the future. Even though this was released in 2017, I think it's pretty true now and kind of resonates with the fact that This is a rapidly growing space. A lot of companies are investing more and more in digital marketing. So it's just important for us to be prepared for this more competitive sort of environment. Tip 3 is to leverage social proof. The first point here is just testimonials and stats. If you have really good customer testimonials, this is a very easy win for your landing page. It really humanizes what it is you do, and it also gives you some quick, easy brownie points, which we all love. Have a few standout quantitative stats to share. This is a very quantitative space. At the end of the day, your users will be looking at how your rates compare or how your terms compare with others. So it's a good idea to distill that into an essence to present it to them in a very easy manner. This second part here is to use or leverage industry-related credibility that you might have earned. This comes through the form of badges, certificates, awards, endorsements. You can see that here in the screenshot on the right-hand side, where this company has presented some of their badges and certificates. And lastly, if you've got a good portfolio of clients that are large marquee clients or easily recognizable, definitely Fortune 500 or even Fortune 1000, the key point is that there is brand recognition and that it would kind of add value to your user. Definitely be sure to leverage that, put that on the landing page, put that on your assets. It's a stamp of approval. Tip 4, definitely understand the regulations. Being in the space, you're probably aware that it's highly regulated. The companies that we've worked with in the past, they're pretty cognizant of the laws and the regulations and also what's allowed and what's not allowed. But it's good to do your homework on this. One key point about this is that disclosures are very important on the Google marketing platform. So make sure that you fully disclose and are transparent about any sort of associated fees to your product. Make sure that you present your contact info and physical location clearly. And if you're alluding to some third-party endorsement or accreditation, be sure to include links back to that so that users can find where that's coming from and kind of validate that for themselves. That's one of the requirements from Google as well. Continuing on, if you are in the personal loan advertising space, these are some of the items that you have to include. So just information about the quality, fees, features, benefits, and any risks associated with the product itself. These disclosures, of course, help the user make informed decisions, and it's a requirement from Google. And also, be sure that your landing page and or website includes information about the following: APR, minimum and maximum repayment period, and also include a representative example of the total cost of the loan, including any applicable fees. Moving on to tip 5, start paid search marketing slowly. So this is a very important point. A lot of clients we work with tend to kind of want to just charge right in and throw a lot of budget at new campaigns like really quickly. So it's kind of a front-loaded approach. We actually recommend kind of the opposite. When you first start, I like to think of those as kind of like test or beta or pilot campaigns, where you are choosing what you believe are the best keywords, launching them, and then letting the data settle a little bit. The way we think about it is it's more the first few months, really the first or first 1 or 2 months is really an investment period where you're essentially buying data so that you can refine your campaigns further. So just along that point, we would recommend somewhere between 1 to 3 campaigns with your core keywords to begin with. And then you can kind of branch out and expand from there. At that point, you'll be able to see which keywords are working, which segments are working. You'll be able to go into the search terms report or the search query report to see what type of queries your keywords are attracting. So you'll be able to make adjustments on the positive keyword side and the negative keyword side. And of course, you'll be able to cut out any underperforming segments, keywords, ads as well. So the big takeaway here is it's just important to take a data-driven approach as you're going through this. Another fun fact, this is from eMarketer in 2019. So search ads are the fastest growing digital ad format among US financial services providers. And it's going from 6.5 billion last year to a projected 7.73 billion this year. So big numbers involved here. Moving on to tip 6, prepare for higher cost per clicks. So I think this is quite alarming to a lot of people who are new to the space and are, buying digital ads for the first time on Google or Facebook. They're often pretty surprised by just how high this average CPCs are. You can see in the screenshot here for home mortgage, top of page is actually $15. I've seen it even much, much higher if you were to go for, other pieces of the financial services space as well. I've seen bids as high as $50 to $100. Just know that high CPCs actually, I think, contrary to what one might immediately believe, it's in a way a validation of the maturity of the space and what other advertisers are willing to pay for a particular keyword. So it could be a signal of quality. And what we've found in a lot of cases is that, this is the equilibrium price between supply and demand in the live auction marketplace. So if other advertisers are able to make a particular keyword work at $80, that probably means that there's a positive return there. Whether it's a positive ROI or ROAS, they're able to make it work somehow. And if you think about your underlying products, let's say you're a loan provider, you can make several $1,000s off of a single transaction. And if there's a pretty good conversion rate for some of these keywords, anywhere from 5 to 10%, you can see how it sort of ultimately works out in your favor. The other thing I would say is that there are a lot of advertisers in the FinServ space and they're big spenders, right? So as you get more and more competition, they will tend to bid up the rates of these keywords higher and higher. And that's the other explanation for the high CPCs here. But we believe that if you do a good job with your campaigns and you get your targeting down and you follow the best practices, you'll get better leads, more deals, and it'll essentially negate these higher CPCs in the end. Moving on to tip 7, know your target audience. This is the perfect segue because I just kind of touched on this point. If your company has particular areas that you do very well in, it's good to kind of have the understanding of that and make sure that your campaigns are tightly focused around the segments, the locations, and the demographic sort of profile of your target audience so that you are serving ads specifically to the audience that you want to be marketing towards. So make sure that you're taking advantage of targeting options like age, gender. You can even target household income through both Google Ads and Facebook. So that's a pretty neat feature. Basically, the idea is that the more specific you can get and the better you hone in on your target audience, the better the potential ROI and return on ad spend that you can hope to achieve. This marks kind of the halfway point of the deck so far. So I'm going to pass it over to Caroline real quick to do another poll.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and launch our second poll. And this one is just about how happy you are with your current PPC strategy. So you're either very happy, it's okay, could be better, you're pretty unhappy with it, poor performance and results, or maybe you don't have one at all. So we just kind of wanted to learn a little bit more about the audience we have today and see kind of how you're feeling about what you're working with right now in terms of PPC. So I'll give that a few more seconds so more people can respond. And again, this is anonymous, so don't worry about all of that. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll and share the results. So it looks like we've got a pretty good mix between it's okay or you don't have one at all. So either way, you guys are the perfect audience for this topic. So on that note, I'll kick it back to you, Steve.
All right, thanks for that, Caroline. So just moving forward, just continuing on this, the target audience, there are really two main ways that you can sort of gather data on your target audience, right? Your ideal target audience. One is if you've done some bit of internal customer research, and these are in-house efforts, right? You might have done psychographic sort of profiles on your target audience. You might have done customer surveys or gathered internal statistics. The other way is really to throw up campaigns in the digital space. So whether this comes from Google Ads or Facebook, once you start to launch campaigns, you get to, just going back to the point about the data investment phase, the great thing about digital campaigns, unlike a billboard, is you get a whole host of data sort of goodies from the campaigns that you launch. So as soon as you launch them, provided that you have proper tracking, you'll almost immediately be able to see who they are, more information about who they are in terms of gender, the age group, where they're coming from. And if you're doing this through Facebook, you'll also be able to see different psychographic parameters associated with the user, like interest or affinity-related data, and even income-related data. So these are really the two main ways of going about it. The first way that I talked about, internally, we like to call it top-down approach. And the second way, where you're throwing up campaigns, is just kind of generally known as a bottoms-up approach. So just be mindful of these two ways. And obviously, once you have this data, you can tailor your messaging and your content towards your target audience so that they resonate better, therefore resulting in better click-through rates and ultimately conversion rates. Tip 8 is to create the right and ad copy and make sure that there's originality behind the ad copy as well. We included a screenshot on the left to just kind of show you the competitive landscape that you might expect when a user is searching for small business loan. Obviously, that's a very hot keyword, and you can see that the user is beset with a variety of different sort of ads. So it's very important to, one, keep in mind what your competitors are saying, what they're claiming they can do, and also just kind of how you stack up against your competitors. So it's very important to do like a good hard look at your own sort of service, your key differentiators, and try to distill that into an essence so that you position yourself favorably against your competitors. And also try to make it a little original. You'll see from these ads here, it's a lot of similar information. You can even see the 250K being called out on the first and third ads. So that's fine if there's some overlap in some of the main elements, but also try to infuse your own sort of branding and your own character into the ads as well. That'll help you stand out, and it'll help you get better click-through rates. To that end, it's also important to leverage a call to action. You'll see that in a lot of these ads. They'll say apply now, or they'll have some sort of a verb with an exclamation point towards the end. This is very important because it's been shown to boost click-through rates and ultimately quality scores, which affect how much you pay for each keyword. Tip 9, leverage display advertising. I know this is kind of like a redheaded stepchild of the digital marketing world, but if done correctly, it could be a very powerful supplement to your search efforts and can be a very powerful component in your overall digital marketing kind of approach and strategy. So there are really four main ways to do display advertising. The first is behavioral. Inside of Google Ads, there are these neat targeting options, two of which are included here: custom intent audiences and in-market audiences that are tailored towards a specific topic. So in the screenshot that we included over to the right, these are what Google calls in-market audiences. These are, this targeting bucket will serve ads to users and customers who have been actively searching for home purchase loans and have sort of expressed that intent in their search history. So that's a neat little bucket that you can just sort of tick off and market to almost immediately right off the bat. So that's a pretty useful feature to be cognizant of. The other part of this is just contextual. This is similar to in-market audiences. So it's just you can look through the categories and topics that are listed under either Google or Facebook and target that way. The third way is location-based. Obviously, if you know that there are certain patterns among your audiences, let's say they're bi-coastal, you could target the West Coast and the East Coast and kind of skip over the flyover states if that's something that is relevant for you. Or if you tend to do better in areas that are, higher income, you can target specific zips as well. And lastly, site-specific targeting is exactly like what it sounds. This is where you kind of cherry pick individual sites, forums, blogs that your users tend to hang out on or engage in, and just serve your display ads on those various sites themselves. So this is the most manual approach, but it also, when done well and properly, can offer really good ROI. The other point is just make sure your ads and banners are compelling and original, and definitely please stay away from any broad targeting methods. We've seen clients have a display campaign that leverages, let's say, Google's smart display capabilities, which basically is another way of saying, allow Google to have carte blanche at how they pick different placements, and the story almost always ends badly. So just a little warning about that. Tip 9 continued. Another aspect of display that's very powerful is remarketing. These are like the ads that follow you. Anyone who's had any experience with the internet is probably well aware of them. Amazon does a lot of this. So if you shopped a particular product and then you notice it following you around everywhere on the web, this is what that is. That's part of the overall kind of display universe. So remarketing is a very powerful tool, and it definitely helps improve that conversion rate across the account. Make sure you have a compelling message. Again, the image is very important. So I would say definitely spend the time, energy, and resources to make sure that the images are as good and as compelling as possible. I would recommend a lot of sort of A/B testing here to make sure that you are presenting the right image to your user. Make sure you have a call to action. This is similar to what we referenced and alluded to with the search campaigns, but it's also relevant for the display universe as well. Definitely experiment with different formats. You can see some of the main formats presented here on the left side. Together, these cover over 90% of the total available impressions on Google Display Network. So these are going to be your main ones. And then lastly, of course, listen to the data. Tip 10, stay on top of competitor positioning. So a very good way of seeing how you stack up against your competitors is by looking at the Auction Insights report, which is a report that you have access to right inside of Google Ads itself. It's a pretty nifty feature that gives you a high-level view snapshot of how you compare to your main keyword competitors on different metrics like impression share, average position, the overlap rate, and even position above rate. Like what's the percentage of time that your ad is coming up above your competitors? This is also a very handy report to have. You know, if you want to do additional keyword research, you can grab one of these competitors, plug it into a third-party keyword search tool like SEMrush or SpyFu to get an approximate idea of how much they're spending, what keywords they're bidding on, things like that. And we'll also give you ideas for how to improve your own positive and negative keyword targeting as well. Tip 11 is to test, adjust, and test again. I feel like we've been hounding this point in the deck, but we really wanted to emphasize it. With digital marketing, what's great is that you have full sort of traceability, accountability, and transparency into the numbers at all times. So as this screenshot kind of illustrates, you can see the numbers behind all your different campaigns and even the different segments. So it's very important to drill down like this and see what the relative conversion rates are between, you know, desktop segment, the mobile segment, and the tablet segment. A lot of times you'll find that there are huge discrepancies between these different segments. So it's very important to look at that and make bid adjustments as appropriate. Also make sure that you're looking at which keywords are actually driving funding value or driving business instead of just driving conversions and analytics goals, as we were saying before, right? Because at the end of the day, you really want to optimize for the end goal action, which in this case would be someone who takes out a loan with you, a funding deal, a transaction that drives business volume for you. So definitely listen to that piece of data as well. And then lastly, looking at user data, of course, keyword we talked about. The source or network, this refers to, the search network as opposed to the display network, and then also the video network as well, which are all kind of delineated in that way inside of Google Ads itself. And then also another signal you can kind of listen to is the campaign type. There's, remarketing campaigns, there are standard search campaigns, there are remarketing search list ads campaigns, so on and so forth. So make sure that you are running campaigns or putting additional budget towards the campaign types that are really resonating with your audience and working for you. Tip 12 is to add retargeting to your ads. This is an elaboration of the earlier point, but it's, very critical to any successful digital marketing kind of effort. So we definitely wanted to expand on this point a little bit more. You can see on the right-hand side a couple of examples that I grabbed through just the screenshot tool to show you why, these can be so effective. So these actually are banner ads that I personally received after doing a couple of sample keyword searches for student loans and home loans. So you can see they essentially echo the offer, the service, the message that I saw earlier. And it's very useful for those who, for whatever reason, did not convert on the spot, right? A lot of times people actually won't convert on the first interaction. I think that's more the exception than the rule. So how do we go after the 95% of your audience that didn't convert on the first time? Remarketing is really the answer. And, by having, these well-done banner ads like this, you stay top of mind among your users and you bring them back into the fold. The other thing I would say about this is that the remarketing window is very important here. So it's very important to understand basically the length of the sales cycle and the consideration period. If you know that your audience tends to mull over the decision, for example, or they could still be a relevant lead for you 60 days or 90 days after the first interaction, then you can adjust the remarketing window to 60 or 90 days. But by default, the remarketing window inside of Google Ads itself is set to 30 days. So just be mindful of that. Audience segmentation is key. If you're a company that offers, let's say, home loans and auto loans, you can segment those audiences appropriately. So people who have searched for or expressed an interest in auto loans can receive an auto loans related remarketing ad, and someone who's touched your home loan product can receive home loans remarketing ads. So segmentation is very powerful, especially if you have multiple service lines. You can make sure that the relevant user is seeing the relevant message at all times. So just be mindful of that option as well. Tip 13 is to develop focused campaigns. This really brings together a lot of what we spoke about before. Obviously, we touched on location-based targeting, income targeting, demographic targeting, so on and so forth. But it's really important to see all of these kind of disparate elements as all kind of marching towards the same goal. And at the end of the day, not only is the ultimate goal to get at sort of your ideal audience through all of these targeting parameters, but you also want to make sure that every sort of touch point and every single asset that you present to your audience is as custom tailored to them as possible. The example that I gave earlier about the remarketing banner and how that's, should be segmented according to the exact user profile is the perfect example of that. You can also do that with your landing pages and even your video assets. So make sure that that's sort of a guiding principle that cuts across the board for you. Tip 14 is to do research on your keywords. This is really still the bread and butter of search engine marketing. And without having the right keywords and the right focus, you're going to end up wasting a lot of money. So it's very important to understand the differences between top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel keywords. Just to put it briefly, top of the funnel keywords are exploratory. They're research-based. These are people who are searching very, very high level. So they could be a query like, what do current rates look like for a 30-year fixed, right? Very high level. They're just getting into the funnel, so to speak. Bottom of the funnel is they're ready to convert, right? It could be like a query, lowest mortgage rate lender currently, right? Or in 2020. They're ready to kind of pounce on this. So we like to start with bottom of the funnel keywords here at HawkSEM. They promise the greatest return. So just be mindful of these different type of keyword buckets. Ultimately, it's going to depend on your particular strategy, but the way we like to start is with bottom of the funnel keywords. And then if we want to reach out a little bit more for expansion reasons, then we might think about maybe exploring middle of the funnel keywords. We very rarely do top of the funnel stuff. The other point of this is make sure that you look through the search query report regularly. This is a report inside of Google Ads itself that tells you what your keywords are being matched against in terms of what people are searching. A lot of times, if you are doing more top of the funnel keywords or broad match keywords, you're going to see a lot of queries that actually aren't relevant to your offering. So just be very careful about that. The search query report is a great source to kind of nip that in the bud and to make sure that you are running the right set of positive keywords and negative keywords. And It will give you a lot of ideas in terms of how to populate your negative keyword list to negate queries that are not relevant for you and just a waste of money. The main keyword match types are exact, phrase, broad modified, and broad. We included a chart on the right that breaks down the differences and does a really good job of explaining it. So when you have a little bit of time, I definitely encourage you to take a closer look at that to understand the different nuances. And with that, I'm gonna hand it over to Caroline to wrap up.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Steve. That was such a great presentation. So much good info. And to everyone here, if you have any questions about anything, you know, this is a great time to pick Steve's brain. You can still type them into that Q&A box or the chat feature, and we'll get to that next. But first, I wanted to go ahead and just reiterate Steve's great points. We covered a lot today. So these are our 14 winning revenue boosting moves for FinServ PPC. We've got focus on engagement, pay attention to the data, leverage social proof, understand the regulations, start paid search marketing slowly, prepare for higher cost per click, know your target audience. Those are the first 7. And then secondly, we've got that you want to create the right original copy, leverage display advertising, stay on top of competitor positioning, test, adjust, and test again, add retargeting to your ads, develop focus campaigns, and lastly, research keywords. And so for our attendees, we also wanted to mention this exclusive guide. If you want to continue on this PPC journey, we've got a guide to problem solving for your PPC program. And it's got a lot of great tips for improving your ROI. And it covers everything from, you know, figuring out why your leads aren't qualified to, you know, the best ways to optimize your site and maybe why it's not properly optimized, and much, much more. So feel free to download that. That's at hawksem.com/PPC guide. And for those of you who are listening and not watching, it's hawksem.com/PPC-guide. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the last poll. And this one is just about whether or not you're interested in a free PPC audit from HawkSEM. Obviously, no pressure here, but you know, if you want to keep the conversation going, or if you have more questions or want to talk to some of our experts, you can certainly do that. And I'm going to kind of leave that poll running, so just let us know. And with that, we are going to go ahead and jump into the Q&A. So you can still add your question here if you have one, but our first question, this is from Zach McDonald, and he actually emailed me this question in advance after he registered for the webinar. And he wanted to know, Steve, how do you recommend targeting high net worth individuals?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I know that in the FinServ space, this is a very common and relevant targeting parameter. The best way of doing that is to know where your audience is, because inside of Google or Facebook, there's a way to target high net worth individuals just through income targeting. So inside of Google itself, that's something that you can simply tick off, and you'll be able to address, target, and kind of comb off the top 5 to 10% of earners in the country. Same thing with Facebook itself. And on the Facebook side, it is based on the top 5%, top 10% of earners in terms of where they live, in terms of zip code.
Gotcha. That's great. Okay, if we don't have any other questions, I think that's it for us. Does anyone else want to add anything before we give you a little bit of your time back? All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. That wraps it up here. And if you think of a question later, please feel free to reach out to us at info@hawksem.com. We should be sending out this recording within next 48 hours or so. So keep an eye on your inbox for that as well. And hopefully you got a lot out of this and have some tangible takeaways to bring back to your team. And Remember, you can request a PPC audit from HawkSEM after this is over by heading to hawksem.com/finserv PPC audit. That's hawksem.com/finserv-PPC-audit. And that's it, everyone. Have a great week.